Welcome back to the channel and another adventure. We have an early morning in Skagway, Alaska, as our plan is to drive part of the Klondike Highway from Skagway, Alaska to Watson Lake in the Yukon. This trip takes us over the White Pass again to the Carcross Desert, and we will make a stop in the town of Carcross. Home for the night is going to be the Signpost Forest in Watson Lake. In this little map I prepared here on screen, you see our direction of travel. It is 528 kilometers, 330 miles, about 6 hours. The direction of travel, Skagway, Alaska, stop in Carcross, and then to Watson Lake.
Hello everyone, Cass here. Any idea where we are? It says the Carcross Desert, and indeed it is sand. So where would you think this is? I can let you know it is in Canada, so we're not somewhere exotic in the Caribbean or somewhere else where they have sand and desert and beaches, but it is an actual desert. So where do you think this is?
A bit later in this video I will provide a bit more info about this desert, the location and how it came to be, which is a process that is still happening these days. But let's take it one step at a time. As it is still early in the morning, Skagway is still mostly asleep and it is pretty quiet. Before we leave town, I want to check a couple things I missed yesterday. As we drive some of these main roads, there are a few other early birds out and about, but all in all it is still very quiet. This reddish brown building that's coming up here, we are just going to turn right in front of it, is the visitor center in town. So if you want some info, that's maybe the place you can find something. Now I want to check out something just right around this corner here, and here we are. I think this provides a bit of history and information about the area, so let's have a look. The pictures and information posted here are about Skagway and dates back to around 1897. The information I learned from reading the notes that are posted here, I just shared them with you. Now remember, this is history dating back to 1897 and apparently based on the good advice and requirements from the Canadian government at the time. The Canadian government back then refused to permit anyone to enter Canada in this part of the land without a year's supply of food. The reason was the hope to prevent the famine in this remote area. However, that requirement meant that every gold rush stampeder had nearly a ton or 2,000 pounds to take with him. The list was not just for food items but also for cooking supplies, clothing, tools and other gear. Now as we drive through here, you see Skagway. It's a social house, I believe. You may recall in last Alaska video from Skagway, I couldn't remember where we had something to eat. So FYI, that was the place. As we leave Skagway now and then start driving up the White Pass, I will fill you in with the rest of the story I started just a minute ago. Now, we left it off with the supplies, I believe, and I just mentioned taking all these supplies and the weight of it made it very difficult to carry. The distance to carry all these supplies was about 33 miles, and of course you could only carry about 50 to 80 pounds per trip. That meant you kept walking back empty to pick up your next 50 to 80 pounds of supply until you had everything you were required to have. That requirement meant that some stampeders walked 2,600 miles or about 4,160 kilometers until they had all the required gear and supplies with them. It was a very harsh place to be, especially in the winter with all the snow, and I'm going to read you the words spoken by Stampeder Mount Hawthorne at that time. We walked along in the snow, and we come to a fellow sitting on the back of a Yukon sled. Yep, he was just sitting there in the middle of the road, talking to himself. His head was down in his hands. He looked plumb played out. He never seen us. He just went on talking to himself. Over and over. He'd say, "It's hell. It's hell." I think this comment outlines how very difficult it was to pursue a dream they had. So, let me ask you this. How far would you really go to fulfill a dream? You can let me know in the comment section of this video. We are arriving now at the border, crossing from Alaska back into the Yukon again, with an old train station to the right, the brown building here, and Canada Customs Office up front.
Oh, I think it was. See that thing there? That's the water dispenser.
And here we are, back in the Yukon. And as you can see, there is very little traffic at this time of year. Our next stop is the Carcross Desert and the town. I'll let you enjoy the drive for a bit and get back to you once we arrive in town. We arrived in the town of Carcross, and to the right here that you see, that pinkish looking building, is the oldest operating store in the Yukon. You can even get a special stamp into your passport, but as we were early in the day and slightly off tourist season, the store was still closed. But here we have another look at it. Now, as we turn a bit here to our left, there is an old train station from the Yukon Skagway Railway.
From the sourdough place, I guess I could put it in Google.
So we're going to drive through town, see a bit what else we may find here of any interest. As I said, it's a pretty small town. We are now coming up on the ship Tucci, I think, or I hope that's how it's pronounced, or should I say what is left of it. It was built in 1917 by the British Yukon Navigation Company, and it was in service until 1955. In 1971, an ambitious restoration project for this ship was started that lasted for years, but then tragically in 1990 the ship caught on fire just before the restoration was finally completed after all these years, and the fire suppression system was not installed yet. It was a devastating blow apparently to this small community and the ship's owners, as it was supposed to be part of the area's tourism industry. In the early 1900s, this ship was actually a very popular destination to cruise the lakes in this area. So we are just looking at what is still left from it with some information. Most of it is listed here, what I just briefly mentioned to you as well. And as we look across the Watson River to the other side of the shore, we see some old abandoned homesteads as well. We noticed that on the internet, in the listings, there's still a sourdough bakery, so we thought we'd stop by and see, but I think the search engines, yeah, it's still here, but I think this one closed some time ago. So we'll just check out some other buildings. I mean, it was still a very, in my opinion anyways, a nice, cool building to look at. So is this house here. They are things from a different world. And now we arrived at the Carcross Desert. That is just at the edge of the town that bears the same name, Carcross. Here you will find plants that are able to live under harsh and unstable conditions. To give you a couple examples, the roots of the Baikal sedge and the Siberian aster. Now, you may wonder, why are there sand dunes in this place to begin with? Well, let's get to the bottom of this mystery. The river in this area is the Watson River, and that's the river you just seen when we were over at the ship there. That river is always full of sand as it flows into Lake Bennett. In the spring then, when the lake has a very low water level, these sand deposits are being exposed in the lake, and with the prevailing winds in this area, they blow the sand onto the beach and then further inland, creating these sand dunes. The wind is so strong at times, it even blows the vegetation away, and other times it uncovers long ago buried forests again. While this is an ancient environment, this process is still very active nowadays, so these dunes keep shifting and growing, creating a desert-like landscape. Now, while we are traveling on, driving towards Watson Lake, which again will be home for tonight, I have a little bit more info about these sand dunes. While we know how the sand ends up in Carcross, the question still remains, where does the river pick up all that sand? The answer to that question dates back 10,000 years into the past. With the glaciers melting that covered much of North America, glacial lakes, some as deep as 300 meters, that is about 900 feet, were created, and all the sand and silt that was in the glacier ice was deposited in these glacier lakes. As the glaciers disappeared, the lakes also dried up, leaving all that sand behind. With the Watson River flowing through some of these ancient lake beds, it keeps moving the sand into Lake Bennett. In the meantime, it is getting later in the day and the sun is just about to set, and we are not that far away from Watson Lake anymore. In this Alaska travel video series, the next video will be the morning of day 18, and before we leave town, we will make and post our own sign at the Sign Forest. So if you want to see that, maybe subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss it. In the meantime, stay safe, be well, and you will see me again in another adventure next week.